Playoff expansion is a reality now. 12 teams will have the chance to compete for it all in 2024, and we're going to tell you how it impacts FSU next. Hey guys, thanks for coming to the channel. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you're liking the content, smashing that subscribe button, and let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. FSU fans, make sure you're saving money at garnetandgold.com on all your Florida State gear using the code NOSLAW, that's NOSLAW, at checkout. The College Football Playoff Committee announced this week that they would be going to a 12-team playoff in 2 years, meaning that this year and next year are our last two 4-team playoffs. Quick recap, the 12 teams will be the 6 highest-ranked conference champions, and then the next 6 highest-ranked teams. 99 out of 100 years, you're going to have your 5 Power 5 champs, and then your next highest group of 5 champion. And then the next 6 teams. The top 4 seeds will get byes, and the remaining 8 will play home games at the lower-seeded teams' stadiums. So if FSU is number 5 and UF's number 12, we get a repeat of the Saturday after Thanksgiving with Florida and Florida State playing each other at Doak Campbell Stadium. The winners of those 4 games will play the first 4 seeds in 4 of 6 New Year's Six Bowls as we know them today. The winners of those games will then play in the remaining 2 New Year's Six Bowls as semifinalists, and then a final game will crown our champion. People are fairly split on whether this is good for the sport or bad for the sport, and that's probably a debate for another time, like later in this video. But what I'm sure of now, and most importantly, is that this is a great thing for FSU in the very near future. Florida State has ascended to be a top 13 team right now. They're a fringe playoff team with expansion this very season. If expansion had happened this season, there's a great chance the Noles get in with how hot they've been down the stretch. But there isn't expansion just yet, so no need to chase that rabbit down the hole. This means so much more in the big picture. Florida State's not back by any means. But if there's anything the last 20 games have shown you, in which Florida State has gone 14-6, it's that FSU is returning and likely has returned to be a near top team in the ACC. Clemson's still number 1, I get that. But who finished second in the Atlantic? The Noles did. Who's the highest ranked ACC team outside of the Clemson Tigers? Well, that'd be FSU again. At a minimum, Florida State should beat nearly every ACC team with regularity. And that may only include the exception of Clemson. Florida is always going to be on the schedule, and we play a good amount of elite out-of-conference teams coming up. But if the Noles can consistently win 9 or 10 games in a weak ACC, they'll be competing for a playoff spot year after year after year. Now listen, I don't like the ACC. I've made videos about that. I've talked about that. I'm ready to get out of this conference. But while we're here, we have an objectively easier path to getting to the 12-team playoff every single season. FSU would have made a 12-team playoff in almost every single year of Jimbo Fisher's tenure here. Remember how we used to say that he was just a 9-10 win coach until he got Jameis? Well, that would have been good for a playoff spot every single time. If you only take away one thing from this video, let it be this. Florida State takes care of business year in and year out, and they will always compete for a college football playoff spot under this new format. Now, we're following a little bit of a hypothetical here, but Florida State's schedule on paper doesn't appear to be as difficult as this year's was in 2023. With Jordan coming back, the Noles could theoretically compete for the 4-team playoff that'll happen next season, and the recruiting bump that they're going to get from back-to-back potential 10-win seasons should be pretty special. And that leads you directly into a 2024 schedule that sets up very well again. You get the Gators and Clemson at home. There's no Alabama, LSU, or UGA on it just yet, and you should beat most of the ACC teams you play. With that, you've got a shot at the playoff. Want to know how to close the gap more quickly with Clemson? Get into some playoffs. Get that national recognition. Get the bump in money. Go beat somebody in the playoff. Play a home game at Doak Campbell in December. That closes the gap quicker than you could have ever done in the past. This is huge for recruiting. This is big for the portal. This is big for financial reasons. And it all comes down to one thing. Can Florida State capitalize on it? Can the Noles continue to be a top 2 to 3 team in the ACC? Can the Seminoles beat their rivals? Can the Seminoles not get tripped up against the likes of Syracuse and Boston College and Georgia Tech and Wake Forest? If they can consistently be in the mix for a lot of future playoff spots, you're going to see that gap with Clemson close tremendously, and they'll be a national power within the next few years. I mentioned this earlier, but if you're a Florida State fan, you need to be shopping at garnetandgold.com. They're the absolute best when it comes to FSU licensed apparel. And if you're shopping this holiday season, let us save you a little bit of money. You can use code NOSLAW, N-O-S-L-A-W, no spaces, at checkout at garnetandgold.com to save 15% on your order. You won't find that deal anywhere else. Garnetandgold.com, NOSLAW, to save 15%. What about the playoff in general? Not from the FSU perspective. I think there are some pros and cons to expansion as well, and I'll give you those more from a big picture. The biggest con that I can see is that it's going to devalue the regular season. Losses aren't going to sting as much, and we know that there's just not going to be as much riding on that regular season. The passion that exists week to week is on another level in college football, and part of that is going to be gone. However, that con can also be a pro, because when we think about it, we're thinking about the truly elite matchups, like top 10 playoff implication matchups. But what happens when we get later and later in the season? We only really care about those games like Ohio State and Michigan and UGA and Tennessee. But games with two teams that are ranked 12th and 15th just don't matter as much because we know that neither one's making the playoff. With a 12-team playoff, we'll care about those matchups, and they'll have a ton of importance. We'll also see less opt-outs from the top 12-ish teams in the country. This is going to make bowl season better. We're going to get at least 8 more good games instead of the trash bowls that we have right now. This is going to make things more entertaining down the stretch. Overall, I think this is fine for the sport. There are pros and cons. The best regular season in the world is going to be slightly devalued, but it's still going to be better than any professional sport or any other college regular season. And the end of the season bowls plus drama will only be upped. November is going to be a ton of fun in 2024, and I can't wait for it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the playoff? What do you think about expansion? What do you think about FSU's chances going forward and where they are on the path back to national prominence? Tell me what you think and let's chat about it below. Thanks again for watching this. We'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.